Am I the a-hole for distancing myself from my stepbrothers after they tried to reach out to me? This is my first post, and honestly, it might be my last. Writing this already feels like tearing open a wound I've worked years to close. But I need clarity. I need peace. I need to know if I'm the villain in this story, just because I finally chose me. I'm Cherry, 19F. I have two much older stepbrothers, both in their late 30s. They each have families now. Wives, kids, stable jobs, and a history of showing up only when it benefited them. Growing up, they were barely present in my life. We didn't argue. We didn't fight. We just didn't exist to each other. They'd call my father only when they wanted something. Money, favors, connections. Never just to say hi. Never to ask how he was doing. Never to check in on me or my mom. They were distant, cold, and transactional, and that's exactly how they treated our family. And even as a child, I noticed. My dad wasn't perfect. I'll admit that. He had his flaws. He smoked too much, he worked too hard, and sometimes he gave too much of himself to people who didn't deserve it. But to me, he was Dad. He held my hand when I cried, taught me how to ride a bike, snuck me chocolates when Mom said no, and gave the best advice when I felt lost. When I was 14, my dad passed away from lung cancer. Watching him fade was like watching the sun set for the last time. Every day, he became smaller, dimmer. And then one day, he was just gone. That grief, it's like a shadow that never fully leaves. It still creeps behind me on quiet nights. His funeral was one of the worst days of my life, and not just because I lost him. My stepbrothers showed up, and their behavior was appalling. One of them cursed at my mother loud enough for everyone to hear. They treated the ceremony like an awkward obligation, not the farewell to a man who gave them everything. But what shattered me the most was something my uncle, my mother's brother, said to me just before we left for the funeral. He pulled me aside and whispered, "Don't eat or drink anything they give you, and don't take anything from them." At first, I was confused. He was calm but firm. I didn't understand the warning, but I listened. At the funeral, one of their wives, smiling politely, handed me a juice box. "We brought some for the kids," she said. I thanked her, but I never opened it. I didn't even touch it again. I left it on a shelf before we went home. From that moment, a switch flipped inside me. I realized I couldn't trust them. I realized that family isn't about blood. It's about how you're treated when no one is watching. And they had never treated me like family. They barely treated me like a person. For 5 years, I heard nothing from them. No calls. No texts. No birthdays. No, "How are you doing?" when I graduated high school or got accepted into my dream college. Not even a message when I got my driver's license or won that academic award I worked so hard for. Me and my mom managed on our own. It wasn't easy. I had nights where I cried until I couldn't breathe. I had days where I barely ate. But we survived. We built a quiet, little life with no drama, no manipulation, and no judgment. And now, after 5 years of silence, they're trying to reconnect. It started with a phone call from my other uncle, my father's brother, Uncle Mango. He invited me to a lunch in honor of my dad. It's a tradition in our country, honoring the dead with a meal among loved ones. I was polite at first until he said, "You need to make peace with your brothers. They're family. You can't hold a grudge forever." He then went on to criticize my mother for not encouraging me to rebuild a relationship with them, as if I'm some brainwashed puppet with no will of my own. I was stunned. I'm 19. I can think for myself. I told him, calmly, that I had no interest in attending, that I didn't want to see them, that I didn't feel safe. But it didn't stop there. Not long after, one of my brothers, let's call him Grapefruit, called me directly. I don't even remember which one. I hadn't heard their voices in so long that it didn't matter anymore. I was honest. I told him I wasn't coming. He stammered, clearly surprised. Maybe he expected me to fall in line. Maybe he thought I was still the scared little girl at the funeral. But I'm not. I said, "Bye," and hung up. You know what's ironic? For 5 years, I felt completely alone. I had nights where I would sit in the dark, trembling, imagining things lurking in the shadows. Fear that something or someone was out to hurt me. I would pray to a God I wasn't sure existed to bring my father back. Just one more hug, one more word. And in all that time, they were nowhere. Now that I'm finding peace, with a good boyfriend, real friends, and a future I'm actually excited for, they suddenly want back in. But I've built something solid, something sacred, and I refuse to let the past crash through and destroy it all again. So, am I the a-hole for saying no? For protecting my peace? For not wanting to reopen wounds that still bleed when I touch them? They weren't there when I was lost, grieving, or scared. They don't get to be here now.